Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. And in today's video, we are going to be continuing Naruto Tale of Two Sages. What if Naruto was Louise's familiar? Part 12. As always, if you're new to the channel or if you're a regular and you like what we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that's to come out now and in the future. As we continue on with our series for What If Naruto Was Louise's Familiar, we're now reaching towards the end of the Season 4 portion of Familiar of Zero, and once we get out of there, we'll finally be in the last parts, if you will, of this story. As we go into this part, we see Naruto's interaction with the other characters around him, even more so as the world inches closer towards the day of the Great Calamity, a prophecy long foretold within this world, and that it would take the combined mights of 4 unique heroes in order to save it from the darkness that would re-rise. However, in this world, it is not the only one that is being filled with the darkness of calamity, as back in Naruto's own world, the coming signs of war are slowly falling upon them. However, with new key figures playing a role in the war, how will things change? Will it be for better or will it be for worse? And will Naruto make it back to his home to aid them in their efforts to defeat the Akatsuki once and for all? For all this and more, stay tuned as we now continue. Naruto, The Tale of Two Sages. What if Naruto was Louise's familiar? Part 12. As always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Within the Mirror of Truth, as Naruto battled against his own inner darkness, he would find himself confronted by the vestige of the spirit of Kushina Uzumaki, his mother. As the two would speak within their independent realm, Naruto would learn a lot of his mother, a lot of her relationship with his father Minato, whom he had met in his battle against Pain, as well as learning of the tragedy that befell the night that he was born. Upon doing so, Naruto, now being encouraged and reinvigorated once more, would be given the help that he needed in order to master the power of the Nine Tails. Kurama would not be pleased with this, as expected. However, Naruto promised that he would do right by this power, and that he wasn't going to try to hold or bind the Nine Tails. However, Kurama could not see it that way. He was only filled with his hatred for Naruto, who by the day reminded him more and more of the man that put him here in the first place. Not even Minato, but someone else. The man that caught him a long time ago. The first Hokage, Hashirama Senju. But maybe it was something else. Was there someone else that Kurama saw within Naruto? Someone that Kurama could not dare believe to be true? These were the thoughts that he kept to himself. However, Naruto in the meanwhile, now having gained his new power, could feel that he was starting to grow immensely. Not just for the fact that he had already had the power of Gandalf by his side, but after the defeat of King Joseph, along with his familiar Shavefield, he had also gained a second mark. Along with the mark of Gandalf, he gained the mark of Myozun Tonrun, the mark that gave him mastery over the elements. Now, without even needing to wave hand signs, Naruto could effectively use the elements at his disposal, being able to conjure fire, wind, water, manipulate the earth, and use lightning naturally. Of course, for Naruto, he had to take all of this in stride. From what he had known, he was just simply a wind style user, and he could still use wind style ninjutsu. However, Durf would comment that this would be a lot more effective than his ninjutsu naturally. Naruto tried to figure out what he meant by this, but Louise would explain as she watched Naruto training outside from their mansion home, as Naruto had now become the noble of a new domain, following his exploits in saving the country of Gallia from the evil King Joseph, gifted to him by Henrietta, making him the nobleman to watch over the territory he had received. "I think it's better than the power that you use, Naruto," Louise would say. "I mean, after all, the difference between our skills, it's said to be like a thin line, isn't it? Between magic and ninjutsu? However, you yourself even admitted that with ninjutsu, you could only use one element, that being the one that you were born with. However, with the mark you received from Sheffield, you effectively can use all of the changes in nature without any need or worry. In fact, if you apply it to what you can do now, I think I get what you're saying, Louise. Let me try something." Naruto would form a Rasengan in his hand, and then, with Louise's help, he would focus. He was told to focus on the wind, on controlling and using the wind, but not with his ninjutsu, but with his mind. You see, in terms of ninjutsu and magic, it's like the same side of a coin, if you will. You could say that there's a thin line between ninjutsu and magic, like there's a thin line between love and hate. You could say that, in another roundabout way, if energy or if pure power in and of itself were water, then ninjutsu would be like a river, while magic is like a stream. Two very different things in and of themselves, but in the end of the day, they all come from the same source, just being different outlets and having very unique properties. Because of this, Naruto had to view magic in a different way. It wasn't about having the power, it was about having the creativity, the ability to simply conjure within one's own mind. Magic was more so mental than anything else. It wasn't enough just to know a spell, but there had to be a certain level of belief. The belief that the power was within you to perform it and to do it. If you had the affinity for fire magic, and you learned the spell for a fireball, it wasn't enough to just say fireball. You had to actually imagine the fireball. Imagine what the fireball could do. Imagine what it was capable of, and then actually perform it. Or if you were creating something like an earth shield, it wasn't enough to simply say the spell for earth shield. You had to envision what this earth shield would look like, how the stone would take shape and form, and how you wanted it to protect you. As Naruto would continue his training, he imagined the wind forming around the Rasengan. As it continued to spin, the rings of wind that formed around it would start to take shape into the form of a shuriken. "I wonder why it's taken that form," Louise would say. "It's what came to mind. It's a type of tool that I use. It's called a shuriken. The larger ones are called demon wind shurikens. When I was in a tough situation, me and my friend, we fought an enemy and we were able to defeat him using this weapon in particular. I don't know why, but whenever I think about a throwing weapon, it's the first one that comes to mind." "I see. That's what you envisioned with the wind swirling around like a shuriken. So you created a wind shuriken with your Rasengan?" "Wind Rasen shuriken. Yeah. And also, partner, keep in mind, you're using magic, not that ninjutsu. And we see that ninjutsu and magic, even if they are similar, they are still different in their own ways." "What do you mean by that?" "Well, the enemy we fought, he was capable of absorbing some of your attacks, wasn't he? However, he couldn't absorb the magical ones. A combination of the two powers could create something entirely new and different. Something that might be able to serve you well in the future. You're right, Durf. I hadn't really thought about it like that. Naruto was now even more excited to see and learn of just what he was truly capable of doing. In the meantime, as Naruto was training, someone else was trying to do their own training as well. Tiffania, the half-human, half-elf girl, was sitting and watching as Siesta, the maid in training of the house, was sitting under a tree cross-legged, focusing as a single leaf was on her forehead. Now, you might think that this wasn't anything significant, but actually this really was, as the leaf had been stuck on her forehead for around 10 minutes now. A lot better than her previous time. You see, ever since Siesta had learned the truth of her family's lineage, having ties back to Naruto's world, and to the Uchiha clan no less, Siesta wanted to learn what she could do. Of course, she had no aspirations of being a fighter or anything like that. After all, she had lived her life growing up and learning to become a maid and to become a servant of a household, and she was more than happy to keep that role for herself. However, at the same time, she never liked the idea of always being a burden, of being someone that Naruto and Louise and others would have to potentially worry about if something went wrong, and to know that she could maybe do the things that Naruto could do. At the very least, she wanted to learn as a form of self-defense. But there was also another reason. She wanted to get closer to Naruto. Ever since they had met back when Naruto first arrived to the academy, he had always been kind to her. He never looked down on her, and he never judged her because of her status in life. Although, you could say that that's how Naruto's reaction treated everyone in a sort of way. For every girl that Naruto had met up until this point, he had met them from all different walks of life. Siesta, at least to her knowledge, was nothing more but a commoner who served the academy and then served Naruto and Louise as nothing more but a maid. Louise herself came from a noble family. Queen Henrietta, well, that was self-explanatory, she was royalty. And Tiffania, she was a half-human, half-elf, although the elves were not looked too favorably upon by the humans, and vice versa. But yet, despite all of the girls' differences, Naruto never treated them any differently. He never acted cold or malicious. He had no prejudice or bias. In fact, from what they had learned of how Naruto had grown up, if there was anyone who could sympathize with any situation they might have, it would be Naruto. In the midst of it all, as the girls had been gathered together, attending to a hot springs that resided not too far from Naruto's residential home, the girls would all speak about this amongst themselves. It wasn't lost on any of them the true intention of this, for you see, each one wanted to lay claim to Naruto in their own way. Of course, Louise was aware of this more than anything, and if there was one thing she could get angry with Naruto about, it was just his downright stupidity. Stupidity mainly because of the fact that he seemed to be almost oblivious to just how much the other girls really liked him. Of course, there was Naruto technically already being married to Louise. Even though they never had a technical wedding, they did have their own small ceremony, so she believed she was one up on them, but still the other girls were giving her some serious competition. First, there was her longtime childhood friend, Henrietta. She was the queen, and if things couldn't go from bad to worse, Henrietta, from the day she had first met Naruto, had been pretty smitten with him. Of course, Naruto didn't help matters when the first time they met, he just decided to swoop her up off her feet and give her a little old kiss on the forehead, trying to be smooth. Of course, Naruto felt like he had failed, but he had actually done the opposite. And then there was Tiffania, the girl who was almost attacked and harmed, but Naruto came to her defense immediately. And he had been a good supporter for her in everything that they did. How couldn't she fall for him? And then obviously there was Siesta. She had known Naruto just as long as Louise had. And on top of all things, she actually had a connection to Naruto's world. So she felt as though she could lay claim as well. All four girls found themselves in a bit of a rivalry, not sure who was going to take the next spot. They weren't going to do anything like fight, not like anyone really wanted to, and if you think who you would want to win would actually win, you'd have another thing coming. Sure, Louise was a void magic user, but she was still in training, and she had no idea how to tap into her reserves of power. Of course, she could do so subconsciously, but again, that was the subconscious. For now, the best that she could do was do basic levitation and a few other spells here and there, and just cause major explosions. As for Queen Henrietta, well, she actually had skill. She knew how to fight, and she was versed in various forms of combat, as she was royalty, and she was capable of using water magic since she had the affinity for it. Tiffania, well, she was a pacifist in nature, more so than anyone else. She wasn't going to get into any real confrontation at all, but still, if it really came down to it, she had the skills to do something. And then there was Siesta, who was already undergoing her shinobi basics training with Naruto. She hadn't learned to do anything truly significant. She was going to have to do a lot of training before she could even be decently gaining level, but even she was starting to get more confident in what she could do. She had even tried to throw a couple of kunais and shurikens, always confident that she would hit her mark, only she never seemed to do so at all. Naruto would kind of wonder why that wasn't the case if she was really a descendant of the Uchiha. If anything, she was as bad of a shot as he used to be in the academy. He even set up a target, and it was no more than 10 feet away from her. There was no way that she could miss, and yet somehow the shuriken ended up finding its way, curving all the way around and almost hitting Tabitha, who was taking a bath on the other side of the house that one time. Seriously, the girl needed to work on her aim. But still, all four girls had wanted to lay claim to Naruto in one way or another, all assured that they would have the potential to do so. Of course, Naruto in the meantime would mainly be focusing on his situation. He was grateful for the power he had managed to obtain, although the few times he tried to talk to Kurama was not really in much of a talking mood. Whenever Naruto let loose his restraints, the Nine-Tails would try to kill him. And whenever Naruto tried to talk to him, Kurama would simply tell him to buzz off. He already stole his power, so what more did he want? And in the meantime, Naruto still had to figure out a way to get home. He had no idea how long he had even been in this world. He had no idea what was going on the other side until... oh yeah, he could always use the toads to figure out what was going on. Why didn't he think to do so sooner? He would summon any toad that he could call upon, and it would be none other than Gamakichi. Gamakichi would be happy to see Naruto and ask what had taken him so long. Naruto would then rub his head shyly, as he had forgotten he could still summon the toads here, even if he couldn't reverse summon himself. But in any case, Naruto would ask Gamakichi if he could send a messenger toad to the Hidden Leaf, to give them an update on what was going on and the progress he was making, and also to tell them if there was any other significant news. Gamakichi would do so and he would take his orders. As the toad left, Naruto could feel a shift in the wind, as if there was a hostile energy not too far from him. Naruto would move out of the way instantly, as four figures would make their way from the shadows of the trees. They were elves, 4 in particular, 3 males, 1 female. The 3 boys were Jack, Blue, and Damien, and the female was Jeanette. Damien had seen Naruto. He was the elf that had been in the service of King Joseph, although against his will. However, when he escaped and he went back to his people, he told them of the situation he had found himself in, and how he had come across Tiffania and Naruto, beings who were capable of using the forbidden arts, or void magic if you will. The elf people were not trusting of humans. The main reason being was that humans were capable of using void magic. Although it was rare, there was a prophecy that spoke of those who would use the void magic to cause much evil and terror. They were known as wicked ones and not to be trusted. And now learning of the potential void magic users, well, they had to try to nip it in the bud, especially when learning that another user could be one of their own. The four elves would attempt to fight against Naruto. However, Naruto would fend them off much easier than one would expect, primarily because of the fact that he had a power that none of them could simply match. Even with their skills in alchemy in trying to bind Naruto, Naruto was simply able to shrug all of them off. Using his shadow clones, he was able to capture and subdue them. As the girls made their way back from the hot springs, they would be surprised at the fighting and commotion. However, its abruptness would only give them more reason for concern, as they arrived and saw that Naruto had already taken care of the problem. Henrietta would then go into her royal mode, asking why elves had entered into the country of Tristan. Even though they weren't enemies, again, with the divide between humans and elves, they weren't on good terms either. The four would have no choice but to reveal why they were there, explaining that they had to put an end to the corruption that they saw was coming, the use of void magic and the darkness that came with it, and also because of the fact that they didn't trust humans. However, Naruto didn't take too kind to them for doing so, as he explained that Tiffania was half human and half elf, so what was that even supposed to mean? Of course, now learning of Tiffania's true origin, it only made things all the more clear for them in what they should do. However, even still, Naruto wasn't taking too kindly to this at all, mainly because of the fact that they just seemed so hell-bent on causing all this chaos when it was entirely unnecessary. For one, they had a prejudice against humans, and the humans seemingly had a prejudice against elves, although in Naruto's point of view, he didn't really see a difference between any of them. I mean, except that the elf people had more pointy ears, and their eyes were bright and crystal blue, but truthfully, he really didn't see any more bigger of a deal than that. However, Naruto would then learn of the tragedies that had occurred on both sides, about how in either country, it wasn't uncommon for the oppressed race to be used in some form of slave labor, or much worse. Of course, in the country of Tristan, there was no such thing, and the elfin people were treated neither good nor kind. It was just more of an indifference than anything else. While Henrietta was trying to forge peaceful alliances with every country, including the elf people, it was a lot more complicated than one might think. Centuries of oppression, of fighting, of amongst the two different races of people, it wasn't something that she could just easily undo, and she was still new in her rule, relatively speaking. Of course, for Naruto, he just felt that all this was unnecessary. And for the four elves that were captive, there was also the matter of what they were going to do with them. Under normal circumstances, this could be punishable by imprisonment or maybe worse, but Naruto didn't feel like that would be necessary. However, at the same time, he did want to understand more about the problem. In the end, if they wanted to come after him, that was one thing, but why Tiffania? Of course, for the ones involved, it was because she could use void magic and they didn't trust it. However, even still, Naruto didn't see a reason for them to treat her that way, mainly because if she was half elf, then it meant that that part was also with them also. It was a mix of the two, not any more or any less. So did that mean that the elves could be capable of such badness? Of course, the four would take offense to this, but still, they couldn't argue with Naruto's logic. They had been so hell-bent on trying to destroy all who could use the void, but if one of their own was capable of doing so, did it mean that they themselves were also capable of such evil? The very evil that they accused of humans was now found within someone who was a hybrid. Of course, you could just blame that on the human half, but still, there was the elf half that was a part of her also. This only led to more speculation and more of their own understanding, growing and changing as the situation persisted. Henrietta would send a message to the Elf Council. Now seeing that their assassins had been caught, they weren't sure of what they were going to do now and they expected the worst. However, instead, Henrietta promised that they were going to free the elves that they had captured as long as they promised never to do this again. Of course, the council could hardly agree to these terms, and as such, a summit was called into order. At a neutral location, Henrietta and her representatives would meet with the Elf Council. While there, the four elves that had been caught would be brought along with Naruto and Tiffania, as the discussion of what to do with everyone involved would begin. The council could not accept that Naruto could be left to live. Simply put, they didn't trust anyone with the mark of Gandalf, who, in his time as a warrior, had defeated and caused much devastation against the elfin race, and also anyone who was capable of using void magic. However, even while young, Henrietta would comment that the conflicts between the human race and with the elf race had bloodshed on both sides. It wasn't a simple matter of one being good or one being evil. Both sides had done great harm and both sides had suffered great losses. Of course, as Naruto listened to them talk and speak amongst themselves, it only led him to think more about his own world. What he and Nagato had thought about this place was all the more truer now than it had been all those months ago. It seemed no matter what world they went to, there was always a matter of conflict, of people with their own strife, overcoming hatred and trying to pursue peace. The discussions going on here, were they any less different than the discussions held from the Kages of old? Naruto would think about the lessons he had learned, the stories of how the first Hokage tried to pursue peace. He even went as far as to give out the Biju to the other nations hoping that it would do so, but only more conflict spread, and now his world was in the state that it was in. Of course, the conversations only seemed to break down more and more, and it seemed as though they weren't going to make headway in either direction. Until Naruto decided that he would be the one to speak next, as Naruto stood before both sides. I'm not from this world. I'm sure you all know this. Truthfully speaking, the power that I've been granted, I didn't even know I could have it. I don't know the history of this world, of your people, but I do know that pointlessly fighting and shifting the blame, it's not going to solve anything. I've been told that there is a calamity that will befall this world, a calamity that will destroy everyone and everything, regardless to if you are human or if you are elf. If you want to spend this time fighting amongst yourselves, it's fine. But, at least while I'm here, I will help in any way that I can to stop this calamity from falling. And after that, if you still have a problem, then fight me. I don't want to fight any of you. I don't want anyone to die unnecessarily. There's no reason for it. Elf blood, human blood, does it really make a difference? In the end, we all bleed the same. The bloodshed that befalls one side will also befall another. And before long, we'll all be caught in this endless cycle, a cycle of hatred that just perpetuates itself until eventually nothing remains. Now, I can't speak for everyone, but this world might be the only world you have. Don't you think that you owe it to everyone that serves under you to look after it? There's been countless fighting between so many countries, I can't keep track of it all. Even I've participated, and I can't say that I'm any more better or any different. I have blood on my hands, and I can't take that back. But even still, I think that we should strive to be better. Everyone here. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I'm asking you to. Please. We are not your enemy. An enemy to the elves or an enemy to the humans. In my eyes, we are all simply one. And in order for us to survive what's to come, we will have to be as such. Hearing Naruto's speech would give everyone a moment to pause, a moment to think and to meditate on his words. Of course, for even some on the Elf Council, they agreed with the sentiment. The elves had always believed in peace and prosperity. They had always believed in treating others with the same kind of respect and reserve. How could they ever live up to those words if they were seeking violence, and against their own kind unnecessarily? The simple truth was that when Tiffania was in trouble, when she needed help, it was the humans that came to her behalf, not the elves. The humans had been kind to her, they had shown her love, they had given her a home and a place to belong. If the humans were really as bad and as evil as they said they were, then they wouldn't have done these things. This gave them much to think about. Could they trust Naruto? Could they believe that the power that was being used would be used for the right reasons and it wouldn't result in the calamity of the elf people? They weren't entirely sure. But yet Naruto's words still reverberated in their minds. It was as if they had a profound effect on them. They were words that they felt they could believe in. After discussing it, they would agree not to attack Naruto and Tiffania anymore. The 4 elves would be released, and a truce would be called. Of course, for the great prophecy, no one truly knew how it would unfold or how it would end. But, as the coming days would soon show, it would take the help of everyone if they were going to survive. Another summit would be called and hosted by the Pope in the capital of Romilia. It would be there that they would discuss on what to do going forward. The girls, as they had watched how Naruto spoke, each one in their own way, they felt all the more endeared towards him. He was more than just his power and his strength, but even in his own way, he had wisdom. Anyone who could speak in such a manner, and who could affect the hearts of many, was all the more virtuous, and all the more worthy of the love and of the admiration. Even the beast that dwelled within, even slowly, his cold heart was starting to warm. It wasn't going to be easy though. His trust was not something that would be gained in just one day. But if he was truly about keeping his word, if that was really his ninja way, then he wanted him to keep being who he was. Keep being the same Naruto. And maybe there might be a change in the future. However, in the meantime, Naruto's true concern was with the messenger toad, wondering what the word was going to be when it got back. It didn't take long, as when Naruto summoned the toad again, Gamakichi would look to him with a serious expression. Naruto had wondered what was happening, and now he would get his answer. The 5 great nations had joined together in preparation for what was to come. Naruto looked on with bated breaths as the toad would tell him that soon the fourth great shinobi war would begin. A war that would see the coalition of the 5 great shinobi nations, alongside the former leader of the Akatsuki in Nagato, who would be joining their war efforts to defeat the masked shinobi, the one known as Madara Uchiha. However, there was more information, more so that Naruto was not prepared to hear, and that was of the news of Sasuke. From everything he had learned, Sasuke had now been branded as an S-rank criminal. He was now in association with the Akatsuki, and there was a hunt on his head. This would leave Naruto the most speechless, because while he was still trapped, his world was on the brink of war. This concludes Naruto, Tale of Two Sages. What if Naruto was Louise's Familiar? Part 12. As always, if you enjoyed today's video and everything else that we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that has to come out now and in the future. Stay tuned later on this evening as we will be doing the Chainsaw Man anime review, episode 4, and stay tuned for tomorrow's video as we reach the conclusion of season 1 of My Hero Academia: The Dark Knight Returns. What if Deku was Batman? The season 1 finale, part 12. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. Signing off, and I'll see you next time.